Well, I'm joined now by Imran Ahmed, who is the Chief Executive of the Centre for Countering Digital Hate. Welcome to the programme. I'm sure that you have had the chance to see the government's proposed online harms bill. What do you make of it? Do you think that it's a good proposal? Do you think it goes far enough?
Well, the proposal at the moment is it's already been through parliamentary scrutiny. A pre-legislative committee of both houses, the House of Lords and the House of Commons, and comprising all parties, has gone through it and pretty much given it the thumbs up with some changes. Those changes have now been integrated and the final bill is before Parliament. So it went through this unusual phase of being checked by both before it actually, the final legislation was ready, because it is controversial and because freedom of speech is something we have to be very, very cautious to protect. And freedom of speech, let's not forget, is the constitutional amendment, the First Amendment of the US Constitution that says that speech is protected. That's about government being able to legislate around speech. Of course, there is the other matter of consequences for speech, which is how we react to it as people. And of course, we are completely free to say that some speech is abominable. In fact, ironically, that is our freedom of speech to do so.
So I've read through some of the things in the online harms bill, and one of the things that it says is that the government will determine what is legal but harmful. So we've got the law to guide us on what is illegal in terms of hate speech, but then you've got this grey area which is legal but harmful. Do you trust Nadine Dorries, who's ultimately overseeing this entire thing, to be able to make those kinds of subtle distinctions? And should that be something that's in the hands of government ultimately?
Well, it'll be in the hands of Ofcom, which is a semi-independent agency, but I don't trust any politician to have the final say over what's legal but harmful. And that's why, we are encouraging the government to be extremely clear in the passage of the bill as to what they will consider to be legal but harmful, to put some strict guidelines into the legislation, for them to be to have a very strict process that requires Parliament to approve any changes. So it would require secondary legislation to change the way that they define legal but harmful. But there is clearly speech that's legal but harmful that you would want a social media company to take reasonable actions to try and reduce, in the same way that we regulate, for example, the newspapers, or we regulate TV. You can't have harmful content to children before the watershed. In newspapers, they're subject to libel law and they're open to litigation. Platforms should be held responsible if they've been found to be acting in an unreasonable and negligent way in administering the spaces they make money from.
And Elon Musk, and to be clear, that the conversation that we're having this hour isn't solely about him, but it is topical because we know that he said that he was going to try and buy Twitter, and he describes himself as a free speech absolutist. And I'm paraphrasing, but he said something along the lines of, if in doubt as to whether something constitutes hate speech, don't remove it, leave it up. What do you think of that as a policy?
Well, I mean, it all feels a bit like sort of a teenager's understanding of freedom of speech. This is a guy who has a very thin skin, who's incredibly litigious, who slurs people he doesn't like as paedophiles. And now he's sort of saying, I'm a free speech absolutist. He hasn't proven, he's proven himself to be incredibly thin-skinned himself. And I worry about anyone deciding that they think that certain types of speech that they would themselves indulge in should be absolutely protected. Is he saying, for example, that racism is going to be allowed on his platform, that if people just jump on Twitter, start spouting the N-word, that he's going to say, I protect your right to do so? Is he going to say that misinformation that might kill someone? Is he going to say that fraudulent behavior? Is he going to say that child sexual exploitation is okay on his platform? How much speech does he think is acceptable? And where does he see any red lines, if any? Because, I mean, frankly, a safe space for abusers, a safe space for fraudsters, a safe space for child sexual exploiters is an unsafe space for black people, for gay people, for women, for children, for all sorts of people. And he will find very quickly that advertisers agree with him too. I mean, he is seeking to take over a commercial platform. He wants to spend tens of billions of dollars on it. Which advertiser wants to be on the sort of the paedophile friendly version of Twitter, or the racist lunatics version of Twitter? So I do think it's all a bit, let's not forget, he also then programmed jokes into the price of it. He sort of named it, he had the price of each share at $4.20, which is a US code for marijuana. He said that he wanted to rename it Titter from Twitter. I mean, this is not a guy he's a brilliant engineer and an absolutely amazing man. He landed a rocket, for crying out loud. But I'm afraid that his philosophy of free speech is somewhat desiccated. And I'm not sure he's a fit and proper person to be administering, as he claims, a primary locus, a primary space for public discourse.
And I don't know if you heard in my introduction, I said that because technology develops so swiftly, it feels like we're always playing catch up in terms of trying to moderate it in any way or trying to make it fit for purpose or safe for all consumers to use. But I wonder, if you were looking ahead to 5 years' time, what changes, if any, would you hope had been made that changed the nature of the landscape of social media?
I think we need more democracy in determining how the public sphere works. The public sphere has always been a democratically decided spaces. And at the moment, we have a few billionaires. They are the setters of the rule, their judge, their juries, their executioners on their own platform. And they feel themselves to be answerable to no one. So I think that's the first thing, is some more transparency and accountability in the administration of these platforms. The second thing is, I would hope that we'll have realized by then that no platform is actually free to use, that the exchange that we make is an enormous amount of data which we are essentially handing over to people who will ruthlessly exploit it. And this has been dubbed surveillance capitalism. And I think it is deeply, deeply dangerous, because we're allowing a very, very small number of people, including with TikTok, Chinese state-affiliated organizations, to hold an enormous amount of data about our likes, our dislikes, our fears. And I don't think that's a very safe thing to have without there being real strong safeguards on how that data is used.
Imran Ahmed there, Chief Executive of the Centre for Countering Digital Hate.